Okay.
Oh, well,
Talk loud.
we're back. We're in 1945. That was a pretty special year. A lot of things happened that year, but the most exciting was that Terry was born. We were at Truax Field. We had been shipped to Truax Field, and so that's where Daddy was stationed in the Air Force. And well, I don't know if I told the story of moving into an apartment there.
You did.
With the understanding that, of course, we had no children and no pets. And no sooner had we moved in than I thought it seemed there was a possibility that I was pregnant. So we went to the doctor, came back with the news that yes, I was. And in February of 45, I could expect a child. So we had to go down to talk to Grandma Hibba and let her know that when we said we had no children and no pets, we didn't know that a baby was on the way. And so I was very worried that she would feel she didn't want us there anymore. The day that we went down to tell her daughter was visiting, and so it was the two of them there, and the daughter knew that I had been a teacher, and she had a family, small children of her own, and so she had been interested in my teaching career, but the fact that this little one was going to come, Grandma Hibba looked at me, and I said to her, I suspected she didn't want us there any longer. And she looked at me and she says, "You don't think I could put a baby out on the street, do you?" So that was settled, that we could stay. I was working at the hospital at the time, which was right down the street from where we lived. And her son was a doctor at that hospital. And I would walk home at noon for lunch, and very often she would meet me with a slice of liver. I wasn't very fond of liver, but she cooked a whole liver, and then she put it in the refrigerator and got it cold and sliced it very thin for sandwiches. And she'd meet me in the stairway and she'd say, "This was good for the baby." So she not only let us stay, but she took care of me on top of it all. And then in February, the day, Daddy's birthday was February 17th. And we knew the baby was due in February, but lo and behold, on the 16th, there were signs that Terry was coming. So we called a cab. The cab driver drove so carefully when he knew that I was on the way. He was scared to death that you'd be born in the cab. And every railroad track he took just at a snail's pace. But we got there in time. In fact, Terry decided to come a day before his dad's birthday. So this was the 16th, and Daddy's birthday was the 17th. When he was born, I expected what they did was pat the baby on the back and the baby'd start to cry, and you didn't start to cry. And so I said to the doctor, "Oh, he isn't crying." And then all of a sudden, you did start to cry. And he said, "Well, you wanted him to cry, didn't you?" Then the nurse came out and told Daddy that he had a son. And Daddy said, "Yes, I know. This is what the hospital was like." It was a little Quonset hut. and you could hear everything through the walls. So he had heard what the doctor had said. And I had to, at that time, you stayed in the hospital for days and days. I was in the hospital for 10 days. That's unheard of now. They practically send them home right from the delivery room. But that wasn't true then. And of course, there were several other mothers in the same ward that I was in. One of them knew that her husband had been transferred. She had other children as well, and she was going to have to get in the car with her brand new baby and the other kids and drive to the base that he was at. So when they made us stay in bed, when the nurses weren't looking, she got up and she started walking around because she knew she had to have the energy to drive a car. But the rest of us stayed in bed, and by the time I could go home, I was just as weak as a dish rag. So the visiting nurse had to come every day to help me bathe the baby and see that everything was going all right, because I had no energy at all. It was kind of like I am now, as old as I am. That's about the kind of energy I had. But Terry grew and prospered, and since 45 turned out to be the last year of the war, so finally when in the fall the war was over and we were able to go back to Chicago, but where to live. And what happened was we moved in with my mother and dad, Momon Muti as we called them. And so Terry really had his first couple of years at my parents' house while Daddy was able to go back to Northwestern and finish his bachelor's degree, and then he started working on his master's. And so we were with my parents until Daddy had finished his master's degree.
Okay.